The British Christmas dinner you know came from Germany. So did afternoon tea sandwiches, elaborate cakes, and even how you eat breakfast. When Queen Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840, she married a man who would transform British food culture. Albert brought German traditions, recipes, and dining customs that the royal household adopted enthusiastically. What started at court spread to the upper classes, then filtered down through Victorian society. Let's explore the German food traditions that Prince Albert brought to Britain. The Christmas foods and Christmas tree. Prince Albert popularized the Christmas tree in Britain, bringing with it an entire system of German Christmas food traditions. The decorated tree came from Albert's childhood in Germany, where Christmas trees were established tradition. He introduced the custom at Windsor Castle in 1840, shortly after marrying Victoria. The practice spread rapidly as illustrations of the royal Christmas tree circulated in newspapers. The tree came with German Christmas foods. Stollen, the dense fruit bread dusted with powdered sugar, appeared on British tables for the first time. The bread was prepared weeks in advance, wrapped, and stored to develop flavor. Lebkuchen, spiced German cookies, became Christmas staples in British homes. These cookies, often decorated with elaborate icing, were originally German monastery traditions that Albert's influence brought to Britain. Marzipan treats shaped into fruits, vegetables, and other decorative forms were German Christmas specialties. British confectioners adopted marzipan work, though initially the skills came from German pastry makers. Christstollen, the festive bread filled with dried fruits, nuts, and marzipan, became associated with Christmas in Britain through Albert's influence. German bakers in London found new markets as British households wanted authentic German Christmas foods. The timing of Christmas celebrations shifted toward German patterns. Christmas Eve gained importance, with gift-giving and special meals on the evening of December 24th, rather than focusing entirely on Christmas Day. If you're still here after learning about the first German food influence, subscribe for more Victorian meal videos. Next, German sausages and preserved meats. Albert's preference for German sausages introduced new preserved meat traditions to the royal household and eventually Britain. Bratwurst, Leberwurst, and various German sausage types appeared in royal kitchens. These sausages used different spicing than traditional British sausages. The German emphasis on specific herb and spice combinations, marjoram, caraway, coriander, created distinctive flavors. The royal kitchens employed German butchers who understood proper sausage making. These craftsmen trained British staff in German techniques. Breakfast tables at court began featuring German sausages alongside traditional British items. Guests at royal residences encountered these German specialties, spreading awareness among the upper classes. German methods of smoking and curing meats influenced British practices. The German approach emphasized particular wood types for smoking, specific salt and spice mixtures for curing, and precise aging times. Westphalian ham became available in British markets, partly due to increased demand from households wanting to emulate royal dining. German delicatessens opened in London, catering to this new market. The German tradition of combining sweet and savory flavors in preserved meats influenced British cooking. German sausages with fruit, or sweet mustards with meat, introduced flavor combinations that gradually became accepted. Elaborate cakes and pastries. German baking traditions transformed British cake and pastry making. Albert's influence brought sophisticated German techniques to royal kitchens. The multi-layered torts that German bakers specialized in were unknown in Britain before Albert's arrival. These cakes featured multiple thin layers alternating with cream, jam, or buttercream fillings. The construction required skills British bakers had to learn. Black Forest cake, though it reached peak popularity later, had roots in German baking traditions Albert helped introduce. The combination of chocolate, cherries, and cream was distinctly German. German butter cakes, rich and dense, contrasted with lighter British sponges. The German approach to cake baking emphasized butter content, and specific mixing techniques that produced different textures than British methods. Streusel toppings, the crumbly mixture of butter, flour, and sugar sprinkled on cakes and breads, came from German baking. This topping became popular on British coffee cakes and tea breads after being introduced through German influences. The German tradition of serving elaborate cakes at afternoon coffee influenced British afternoon tea culture. While afternoon tea was already established, the cake offerings became more sophisticated as German baking techniques spread. German pastry techniques, particularly work with filo-like doughs and layered pastries, required training British pastry chefs didn't initially have. German pastry makers found employment in London bakeries, catering to demand for authentic German baked goods. The German emphasis on precise measurements and specific temperatures in baking influenced British recipe writing. German recipes included exact weights and temperatures rather than vague instructions, improving consistency in British baking. Breakfast traditions. Albert transformed the British royal breakfast, introducing German customs that gradually spread through society. The German breakfast emphasis on variety influenced royal breakfast tables. German breakfasts traditionally included multiple types of breads, various preserved meats, cheeses, jams, and both sweet and savory items. British breakfasts became more elaborate following this model. German breakfast breads, dense rye breads, seeded rolls, and various regional specialties appeared alongside British breads. The darker, heavier German breads contrasted with British white breads, offering different flavors and textures. The German custom of eating cold meats and cheeses at breakfast, not common in Britain, became acceptable at court. This expanded British breakfast options beyond the traditional hot-cooked items. German jams and preserves used different preparation methods than British versions. German preserves often contained whole or large fruit pieces in thick syrup, while British jams were typically smoother. The German style influenced British preserve making. The timing and structure of breakfast shifted slightly. German breakfast customs included longer breakfast times with more social interaction. This influenced royal breakfast practices, making breakfast more of an event than a quick meal. German breakfast quark, a fresh cheese similar to yogurt, appeared in royal diets. Though it never became mainstream in Britain, it introduced the concept of fresh dairy products at breakfast beyond butter and cream. Pickling and preserving methods. German preserving traditions influenced British food preservation, particularly for vegetables and fruits. German sauerkraut making introduced British cooks to fermentation preservation beyond simple pickling. The German method of fermenting shredded cabbage in its own juice with just salt produced different results than British pickled cabbage in vinegar. The royal household's German staff prepared sauerkraut using traditional methods. This fermented cabbage appeared regularly at court meals, particularly during winter months. The German belief in sauerkraut's health benefits influenced its regular consumption. German pickled vegetables used different spice combinations than British pickles. The German emphasis on dill, caraway, and mustard seeds created distinctive flavors. British pickling began incorporating these German spice preferences. German fruit preserving emphasized whole or large fruit pieces suspended in thick syrup. This contrasted with British jams that were typically cooked until smooth. The German style became popular for certain preserved fruits, particularly cherries and plums. German methods for preserving meats in aspic, meat jellies flavored with specific herbs, influenced British aspic dishes. The German approach used different herbs and preparation methods than traditional British meat jellies. Rumtopf, a German tradition of preserving fruits in rum, throughout the summer for winter consumption, became known in Britain through German influences. Though never as popular as in Germany, the method appeared in some British cookbooks. The German emphasis on precise recipes and timing in preserving improved British preserving results. German preserving recipes specified exact proportions and times rather than vague instructions, leading to more consistent outcomes. Coffee culture. Albert's German background influenced British coffee consumption and preparation methods. German coffee culture emphasized stronger, darker coffee than British preferences of the early Victorian period. German coffee was typically roasted darker and brewed stronger, creating more intense flavor. The German tradition of afternoon coffee with cake paralleled but differed from British afternoon tea. Albert's preference for coffee influenced royal household beverage choices. German coffee service used different equipment than British methods. German coffee pots and serving vessels had distinctive designs that appeared in royal households. German coffee cake traditions, cakes specifically designed to accompany coffee, influenced British baking. These cakes were less sweet than British tea cakes, designed to complement coffee's bitterness. The German practice of serving coffee with whipped cream influenced British coffee service. German dinner customs. Albert introduced German dining customs that modified British royal meal practices. German meal timing differed from British patterns. Germans traditionally ate their main meal at midday, with lighter evening meals. This influenced royal household meal scheduling, making luncheon more substantial than traditional British practice. The German custom of serving meals in courses rather than all dishes at once influenced British dining. While French service dominated formal British dining, German course progression influenced less formal meals. German soup traditions emphasized clear broths and dumpling soups rather than British cream soups. These German soups appeared on royal menus alongside British varieties, introducing new soup styles. The German preference for fruit sauces with meat, applesauce with pork, cherry sauce with game, was stronger than British traditions. These combinations became more common in British cooking through German influence. German vegetable preparations, particularly red cabbage with apples, Brussels sprouts with chestnuts, and root vegetable combinations, influenced British vegetable cookery. These German side dishes appeared regularly at court and gradually spread to British homes. The German practice of serving both hot and cold dishes at meals influenced royal table arrangements. German cold meat platters and salads appeared alongside hot dishes more frequently than traditional British service. German table decoration customs, particularly seasonal arrangements and specific holiday decorations, influenced British table settings. The German emphasis on creating festive atmospheres for special meals spread through British society. Gingerbread and spice cakes. German gingerbread traditions were more elaborate than British versions, and Albert's influence introduced these sophisticated preparations. German Lebkuchen, the spiced honey cookies associated with Nuremberg, became known in Britain through German imports and German bakers. These cookies were more complex than British gingerbread, containing multiple spices, honey, and often elaborate icing decorations. German gingerbread houses, constructed as decorative Christmas items, were unknown in Britain before German influences popularized them. German spice cake recipes used different spice combinations than British cakes. The German emphasis on cardamom, star anise, and specific spice proportions created distinctive flavors. German honey cake traditions influenced British baking. German honey cakes were denser and more heavily spiced than British honey preparations. The German practice of aging spice cakes in gingerbread for weeks or months before eating was adopted by some British bakers. This aging process developed flavors in ways British immediate consumption practices missed. German decorative techniques for gingerbread, elaborate icing work, gold leaf applications, and detailed designs required skills British bakers had to learn. Potato dishes. German potato preparations influenced British potato cookery, expanding beyond simple boiling and roasting. German potato salad, dressed with vinegar and oil rather than mayonnaise, introduced British cooks to cold potato preparations. This warm or room temperature salad was different from British potato service. German potato dumplings, made from grated or mashed potatoes formed into balls and boiled, were unknown in British cooking. These dumplings appeared in royal kitchens as accompaniments to German-style meat dishes. German potato pancakes, made from grated potatoes mixed with eggs and flour then fried, introduced a new potato preparation method. The German practice of combining potatoes with other ingredients, potatoes with apples, potatoes with onions, potatoes in layered casseroles, influenced British potato dishes. German roasted potato methods used different seasonings than British approaches. The German emphasis on caraway seeds with potatoes introduced a flavor combination that some British cooks adopted. Beer and brewing traditions. Albert's German background influenced British brewing and beer consumption patterns, though beer was already central to British culture. German lager brewing techniques were different from British ale brewing. German lagers required cold fermentation and aging that British brewers didn't traditionally use. German brewing methods gradually influenced British beer production. The German emphasis on beer purity and specific ingredients influenced British brewing standards. German brewing laws specifying acceptable ingredients encouraged similar standardization. German beer service traditions, including appropriate glassware and serving temperatures, influenced British pub culture. German beer halls provided models for some British drinking establishments. German seasonal beers, particularly Christmas beers and spring beers, introduced the concept of seasonal brewing variations to British brewers. The German tradition of beer gardens and outdoor beer consumption influenced British pub outdoor seating arrangements. Influence on British food industry. Albert's German food preferences created business opportunities that transformed parts of British food industry. German delicatessens opened in London and other cities, catering to demand for authentic German foods. These businesses imported German products and employed German food craftsmen. British food manufacturers began producing German-style foods for the British market. British bakers made stollen. British butchers made German sausages. British confectioners made marzipan. German food craftsmen immigrated to Britain, finding employment in the food industry. German bakers, butchers, confectioners, and brewers brought skills that enhanced British food production. British cookbooks began including German recipes, spreading German cooking knowledge to home cooks. Cookbooks from the 1850s onward increasingly included German dishes and preparation methods. The Christmas food market expanded dramatically, driven partly by German Christmas traditions Albert popularized. British food producers developed Christmas product lines based on German seasonal foods. British food vocabulary incorporated German food terms. Words like stollen, Lebkuchen, and sauerkraut entered British food language. The overall influence made British food culture more diverse and sophisticated. German contributions added depth to British cooking repertoire. Lasting impact. Many German food traditions Albert introduced became so thoroughly British that their German origins were forgotten. Christmas foods particularly show this transformation. Stollen, Lebkuchen, and marzipan are now considered traditional British Christmas foods, though they're entirely German in origin. The Christmas tree itself created the context for German Christmas foods to seem natural and appropriate. The tree's German origins are widely known, but the food traditions that accompanied it are often assumed to be British. British sausage making incorporates techniques from German influence, though modern British sausages have developed their own distinct character. British cake baking techniques include methods introduced through German influence. The elaborate layer cakes that became British specialties owe much to German baking traditions. The German emphasis on precise recipes and measurements influenced British cookbook writing generally. Modern British recipes are more precise partly due to German influences. German preserving methods, particularly fermentation, influenced British food preservation, though British methods diverged over time. The overall effect was to make British food culture more varied and complex. German contributions expanded British culinary possibilities, creating richer food traditions. Closing, Prince Albert's German heritage transformed British food culture in ways most people never recognize. The Christmas foods you consider traditionally British are German. The elaborate cakes, the sausages, the preserving methods are German influences touched all of them. Albert died in 1861, but his food legacy continued through Victoria's lifetime and beyond. So, which German food tradition surprised you most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this exploration of food cultural exchange, subscribe for more stories about how cuisines really developed. Thanks for watching.